Hey guys, so today I'm gonna react really quickly to Bernie Sanders' opinion on Zohran Mamdani, who he also endorsed for the next mayor of New York City. If you guys don't know yet, I made a video about this before. Zohran Mamdani won the primary election for the next mayor of New York City, but he still has to win the general election, which I believe is gonna be on November 4th, 2025, uh, for the general election for the next mayor of New York City. So keep that day open for November 2025 so that if you guys want him to win and you're a resident of New York City, you can vote for him. So Bundy's just going to talk about his style of grassroots campaign and how that really helped him win the primary election in big numbers.
What Zoran understood is that in order to win, you got to be more than charismatic, and he is. You got to be more than smart, which he is. You got to build.
Which I agree. Zohran Mamdani, he obviously has some skill. He knows how to be charismatic. He's smart about his style of how he's campaigning. He's been doing some videos to advertise himself. He's been working with some locals in New York City. He's been working with other people who are a bit more well known, some influencers. So he's really trying to get his name out there and talk about the basics of democratic socialism, which is just in a nutshell, is a way to move from a, a capitalist control system like capitalism that we have now to a more socialist system where the workers, aka the average individual, really owns the means of production, not private entities like Amazon or private individuals like Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Trump, Elon Musk, etc.
A strong grassroots movement around a progressive agenda.
Yeah, so Zohran Mamdani did do a good job using grassroots style of campaigning, basically going door to door, knocking people's door, explaining who he is, what he does. He had a group of people that volunteered to help him, connect with the locals, local residents, local businesses, local nonprofits, not just focus on big corporations, not relying on APAC, not using APAC money at all during campaign. Make sure it's all run basically in a grassroots style that is money from average people, normal people like you and I, not just a big ass company like Amazon or Facebook or Meta or Tesla and SpaceX and all that. It's more locals really helping out. That's how you really want to do it. You want to have the average individual, and people might be above average in intelligence, but we don't want rich people to always have the power. You want the opposite.
Had thousands and thousands of people knocking on doors because they were excited about his message. And his message said, you know what? In a time of unprecedented income and wealth inequality, yeah, we are going to ask the richest people in New York City to start paying their fair share of taxes. So, among other things, we can address the major crisis facing New York and America, by the way, is soaring housing costs.
Correct. So with the inflation still being high, and with the Trump's tariffs, which is making everything more expensive, because the companies are not just going to take the expenses and call it a day. They're going to make sure to increase the costs of all the goods and services you need, so they can still make a profit. So the bottom line is that you, as a consumer, will pay more for the same products and services because it costs more for the company to produce and sell it. That's the whole thing. That's why it's not good to have tariffs the way Trump is doing. He thinks that's great for the economy. It only works well for the business, not for the regular individual. That's why when you want to build a house, all those materials are gonna be very expensive. Insurance can be very expensive too, depending where you live. Even more so if you have issues with fires and flooding. If you happen to live in an area that has earthquakes issues, tsunamis, even worse. So the more disasters you had, like more natural disasters, the more expensive insurance will be. And now with all the expenses going up with tariffs, inflation, and price gouging, it's not easy to afford housing, which is why Madani focused on three main economic policies that basically will help make things a little bit easier to afford rent, like freezing rent, increase the taxes on the richest people in New York, specifically New York City, and make it easier for people to be able to at least live with dignity. Be able to have an easy time affluent groceries. He's trying to make a private-based grocery, so having a grocery store run by the city, where it's not made for profit. It's made for the people. So it'll never be profit-driven, but it will be self-sustaining by the locals of New York City.
They're going to freeze rent at a time when families can't afford decent quality food. He's talking about helping to create publicly funded grocery stores so that kids, to get food that's affordable, making buses free. He's giving
Yeah,
people.
making buses free is a great to just have basic transportation for the people who really can afford it, and everyone can support that. Because in the end, the private sector should not be profit driven. When you have someone like Trump, he makes everything about profits. He treats it like it's a business, and that's why he's running the federal government. The problem is that making everything to business does not work, especially in the federal government or state government, local government. It makes things more expensive. For the bottom line of the bottom line, in terms of the lowest income households, they're gonna suffer the most. Maybe if you're someone making 200 plus k a year by yourself, you're gonna be obviously okay. But for someone who's making 30k, 20k, 15k a year or less, it's very difficult. It's not fair to force people to have to work now at least 80 hours a month or volunteer work of 80 hours a month just so they can have Medicaid, right? As an example, it makes things very difficult. Some people cannot do it.
A positive agenda, not just going after Trump, but giving something that people can believe in, an analysis which reflects their reality. So I thought it was a great campaign, and I look forward to continue to work with him.
I just want to point out too that Bernie Sanders, he also was not the only one who endorsed him. It was also AOC. She also endorsed Zohran Mamdani. Keep in mind, a bunch of corporate Democrats are completely against Zohran Mamdani, and they spend a lot of time to make sure he loses the general election. Keep that in mind. They're going to make a lot of fake ads. Trump is trying to do the same, claiming he's a communist and all that. There's a difference between a socialist and a communist. Trump claiming that he's not just a socialist, he's really a communist, that he goes beyond just socialist principles, which is not true. Making buses free, increasing the taxes on the rich and the wealthy, have a public base or public funded grocery store, basically controlled by the local government is smart. That's just smart way to make it where it's not about making profit. It's just making just enough to, cover all the expenses, but everyone will benefit and making housing more affordable by raising rent. Is one example that people can save more money, either invest in a 401k, Roth IRA, stocks, 457B plan if your employer offers that, or save more for a natural single family home or a townhome or a condo instead of just renting all day until you end up dying and never be able to own a home. Some people want to own a house, so we gotta keep that in mind. So I hope that Zohran Mamdani wins. I don't live in New York, but I hope he wins the New York City election for the next mayor. Obviously, we're specifically bad New York City, but New York City is a really important city. Probably the most important city in the United States and one of the most important cities in the entire world. That's why you have both corporate Democrats and Republicans who really don't want him to win because they know his policies are good. They're not targeting his policies. They're targeting his race, ethnicity, religion because he's Muslim. They're targeting calling him a communist when he's really a Democrat socialist. Not the same thing. And his whole economic idea are just very plain language. Most people will comprehend pretty easily. And he has a very good strategy. I made a whole video also to talk about it. He explained many times, Ramadan himself. Bunny explained it here, some basis of it. AOC talked about it. It's not that hard to really understand it. This pretty easy way to explain it to the general public. Most people in New York City are going to understand. Even people outside New York City should be able to understand it too. Obviously, as someone who works as a state government employee, so things I can understand a bit more, and I have an MPA degree as well. But still, I think that the average individual in New York City will comprehend that hey, free bus is a good thing. Freezing rent is a good thing. For that's affordable housing. Increase the tax on the rich, that's a good thing. And he provided a very strategic way to do it. A lot of times, just allocating funding, increase the taxes on the rich, you don't need NYPD has way too much funding. You can get rid of some of the funding there. I'm not saying you have to get rid of the NYPD completely, but you 100% can allocate some of the funding of that to provide free buses to New York City residents, to provide freezing rents. Of course, you can subsidize some of the costs of property taxes on the owners of those buildings to make freezing rent feasible. Because we gotta keep in mind, if the property taxes keep going up, no one's gonna own that building anymore unless a building gets bought off by the government, the local government, so New York City, then they can make it where it just makes enough to just sustain the building. But that's very difficult to do, and that could take many years if it ever happens. It's not easy to just be a private sector organization, public organization, and just buy it off private property. That costs a lot of money, and it's more complicated. Not everyone has the funding, so we gotta keep things in the bare minimum basics. Try that first. Have a state legislature, local legislature body that agrees with your policies, and they will gonna work with you to make sure it happens. Um, we gotta keep that in mind. And for housing, again, the Democrat Party has been trying to do some basic things that are pretty close to what a Democrat social will want to do. Not as far, but they've been trying to do incremental stuff. And it's just unfortunate that even blue collar workers from in unions, from IBEW union, and all the trade unions still vote for Trump, even though Trump said many times is against green energy or renewable energy, which means that there are less jobs in the renewable slash green field, right? For green energy, renewable energy. He's completely against unions. Former unions, join unions, completely against that. Uh, he's a scab, really. And Trump is all about profit, 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 profit. He doesn't care about the public. He cut down a bunch of important funding, literally defunded a bunch of federal government agencies and departments, from National Weather Service to the EPA to uh, certain, at least division within the Federal Department of Health, which is impacting multiple states. If you look at Cali's funding for like scholarship for universities being impacted, with Department of Education being impacted, so they're kind of funding to provide even for the state. So Cali has to figure out another way to fund those things. So when you look at Cali, look at New Jersey, you can look at Cali's Department of Health, New Jersey's Department of Health, New York's Department of Health, Washington's Department of Health. I focus a lot on Department of Health of these different states because RFK Jr. is not allowing a lot of these funding to go to the states so they can conduct the research needed for vaccines for pandemics, situations like COVID or measles. So I focus a lot on that too because that's very important. It's not just about Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, which those are also just as important. It's impacting all these blue states. So not just the red states. Now, a bunch of hundreds of thousands to millions of people in overall are losing. They're gonna lose coverage for Medicaid. It's not fair. Just because that's in fact too, maybe you don't need Medicaid. Maybe you have a great job that even after retirement, you can still use the insurance from your job and it can be subsidized, so you don't have to worry about it. You have maybe a pension or really good 401k plan, retirement plan they got from your company or organization or non-profit organization. So you don't need Social Security, Medicaid, maybe not even Medicare, but that's not the majority of Americans. Because the whole point is not to think about yourself. Otherwise, you just keep this individualistic mentality and then screw all states. So you're gonna screw Maryland or New Jersey and all that if you can. Blue states in general are gonna be safer right now, not just for vulnerable groups, but also just in general to stay afloat, to not survive but to also thrive. Be able to have a life, be able to go on vacation, own your home, or just be able to afford maybe a better apartment. Not everyone wants to own a house, and that's okay. But you want to be able to afford those things. So you want to have job opportunities that can improve your chances to obtain those things. Travel if you want to, either international or domestically. So it's not fair to take away those things. Yeah, blue states in general are gonna be fine. I'm not worried too much that Cali, Washington, um, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, um, among others, are going to necessarily suffer. I'm not really worried about those states. It's more Mississippi, Alabama, North Dakota, South Dakota, North Carolina, South Carolina, Texas, Florida, etc. That I'm worried about the residents of the states especially the people who didn't vote for Trump, and they're gonna suffer for the people who did, and it's just not fair. We can talk about the Department of Health of Maryland, or if they have one, which I believe they do. Or, some of these states, most particularly the red states, the ones that live in the rural areas, hospitals. Again, this is why I talk about the Department of Health of those states. Regardless if Bruce is a red state, because a lot of these hospitals in those rural areas, because of the cuts from Medicaid that keeps them afloat, they're not getting the fund anymore. They're gonna close down. It's gonna happen. It's already been happening. Some are already preparing for that. If it hasn't happened already, it's gonna happen by next month or so, and it sucks. I live in a Bruce, so I'm not worried specifically for me or my family who are here, but I worry about other people. It's not just about me. That's the whole point. So why do we talk about Department of Health in Washington, their state Department of Health, or their version of EPA, their version of DOL, their version of Treasury, their version of transportation, all these different agency departments? It's important to keep in mind that when you cut this funding, yeah, the blue states in general can still survive and we're gonna be okay. But I'm thinking the red states, a lot of these residents are not gonna be okay. It's not fair, right? Hawaii probably still be okay, but you go to Alaska, not so much. I just want you guys to keep that in mind that regardless if you don't live in a red state, we still gotta try to help the people who live there, and suffer unnecessarily. So anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comment section. If you agree with Zohran Mamdani becoming the next mayor of New York City, I do. I hope he wins. And I hope there are more Democrat socialists running for all levels of government, local, state, and federal. But that's my opinion. If you disagree, and let me know why. Maybe we can have a debate and we can go from there. And explain to me who you think would be better than Zohran Mamdani. And if you're just going to use talking points that he's a communist because that's what Trump said, then we're not gonna have a serious conversation. That's gonna be a waste of time. If you like the video, like and subscribe. Watch the TikTok, follow us on TikTok, and to support us, we have a Patreon. Starts at $1 a month, just for just to support the channel itself. Thank you guys, and have a good night.